Greetings. I am Tom Earl. Welcome to the celebration. You could be anywhere at any place at any time, and you are anywhere, any place at any time, while also being here. And we appreciate that. Sharing your gifts, your time, your energy. You are valued, you are appreciated, and you are loved. We are here with the final part 4 of 4 with Sadiya. You don't have to listen to the other ones. It's not like it's a plot. But we do recommend that if you enjoy this one, you're going to enjoy the other ones as well. If you've listened to all 3 and this is your 4th, then you're probably Sadiya. So welcome, Sadiya. So glad to have you here. I'm always giving you these little like subtle shout outs in my podcast where I'll be like, and there's one person out there that I know might listen to this. I'm always thinking of you. So
well, thank you.
Even Adora, I bet Adora's listened to 4 of my podcasts in the, since 2016 I've been doing this. She's probably listened to 4. So.
I'm your biggest fan. That kind of means a lot to me. I'm like, I feel special.
It means a lot to me. You are special. Okay, let's go camera off. All right. So if you're comfortable, do you mind sharing what you had started to share before we hit record?
Sure. I was just saying that I was starting to feel a little bit self-conscious about our conversation because I know we're really focusing a lot on like speculative things, emotions, sharing our like stories about our lives and our relationships, and nothing that is necessarily rooted in like knowledge and facts and research and seeming really knowledgeable about something, if that makes sense. And I was just feeling a little bit self-conscious about it. I guess because I'm worried that people will take me as someone who's only introspective and not smart. And I was telling you, so a few years ago, I had a job interview where one of the questions was, okay, we're going to give you 5 minutes to prepare, and we want you to talk for 5 minutes about anything. And I ended up talking about veganism at that time because I was just learning about veganism. And I went for 6 minutes and I was like, do you want me to keep going? And they were like, no, that's good. We're all set. And something that I feel knowledgeable about right now is my work, but I can't discuss it, or like it would not be appropriate to discuss in a podcast, but that's something that I'm currently passionate about. So just, sharing my thoughts.
So is the discomfort on how people will perceive you, or is it that I might be like disappointed because people might not listen to this episode? Is it both? Is it one more than the other? What would you say is the like the root, or one of the roots?
More like people wouldn't listen to it. Maybe some people will. And of course, I'm always hoping that whatever our conversation is going to be interesting or useful. And while I'm in it and we're just like 2 friends hanging out, I really can't tell if it's going to be interesting or useful, but I hope it is to someone. If it's not, I will just take it as I've been enjoying, hanging out with you.
So one of the places I've come to with my podcast is I don't think anyone listens to this.
Oh, okay. That makes it easy.
I really don't. Because I'll say on the episodes, like, if you listen to this, please, I don't think anyone listens to this. Please just send me an email or text me. I listened. And I don't get anything back. And I'm sure there's some place I can look that'll tell me that people did listen to this. But I, after years of putting this out, have just kind of accepted, I don't think anyone listens to this. Maybe they'll listen to this 15 years from now, and be like, oh, look at all this stuff.
Mhm.
But by that point, I'll have put out hundreds of episodes.
Mhm.
So that's kind of when I've been my, like when we talked yesterday, when I was giving you context, it was like, no one listens to this. I had started this for the reason in the way beginning. I had created it was my year of expression, because at the end of 2015, I went through a workshop and I realized that I had been intentionally living small, that I was
Mhm.
intentionally holding myself back because I was worried that if I put myself out there and people found out about who I was and how I think, that they would reject and ridicule me. So I kept myself small. And so I was like, what if I am 70 and I'm sitting on a porch in a rocking chair looking at a sunset, and I think, how did you do, Tom? And it was like, you did good, but you got to admit that you really didn't share who you were because you were afraid people would reject and ridicule you. And I was like,
Mhm.
that would suck. I would
Mhm.
rather be like, well, you sure got a lot of rejection and ridicule, but at least you put yourself out there. Like, I'd rather have that one, right? I'd rather have lived a life of just the pain of what comes with that, but I shared myself, then I don't have to experience the pain of being rejected and ridiculed, but I have to experience the pain of swallowing my words that I'm
Mhm.
hearing share, like not from a place of ego, but like from a place of, try this, Tom. And I didn't. So it's like, all right. So I then always need to lean on discipline rather than my emotions when I say I want to do something and I'm afraid. So then I
Mhm.
said, once a week, I will record a video and share it with my entire list and post it online. No matter what. I'll do that every week, no matter what, even when I'm afraid, because I will be afraid. So then I started doing that. And then it was just a video I was putting on Facebook and sending to my list. And then I was like, well, I listen to things mostly in audio. Let me transcribe the video to audio, or not transcribe it. Let me put the audio version of the video. And then somebody that I met drove or was on a shipping containers from Australia to somewhere else. And they were like, I got through your episodes in like a day. Can
Mhm.
you put out longer form content? And I was like, sure. And then eventually I kind of bought in this idea that my podcast is going to be glorious and will make me a bunch of money. And then I kind of realized my podcast doesn't make me any money other than your generous donation, Sadiya. And it's like, so then why am I doing this? And then I was like, well, let me come back to, I'm doing this because you made a promise with yourself that no matter what, you're going to put on an episode each week. And I still see value in that. I still think that this changes you as a person. And so then let me get back to, I want to put out episodes that feel like the process itself matters. And
Mhm.
so for you and me, this time we've spent together has felt awesome. It's been fun. Like, I've enjoyed this process. And to me, that's all that matters. Does that make sense?
It does. And somehow with you phrasing it that way, that really like clarifies what you were talking about earlier when I said, why do you do your podcast? And I think with that story and understanding this focus on process that you've been talking about, that totally makes sense.
And see, I didn't know that until we did, we're in our almost 2.5 hour of hanging out where, it's like, oh, okay. Even I had an aha explaining this. And now when if you were to be on this, let's say I was talking to somebody else and I was like, okay, Sadiya, so I'm not going to say, all that matters is that it feels good what we do. It doesn't matter what we say. And you should know, I don't think anyone's going to listen to this. So,
I know it's a great way to take the pressure off. So,
but they might. And, screw them with whatever their intentions or expectations are if we don't meet them.
True.
So, yeah, that's why it's like screw video. I don't like being on video. So let's not do video. Just more and more figuring out how do we want to do this. Any thoughts, questions, stories coming up for you, or otherwise I can throw one into the space.
Here's one I'm gonna toss over there.
Let's do it.
What's your favorite YouTube channel?
What's my favorite YouTube channel?
Yes.
Eckhart Tolle.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I'm surprised.
Because he's a white guy, probably. It's always embarrassing saying a white guy.
Oh no. No, that okay, interesting. Okay.
I have pretty much only been listening to Eckhart Tolle for like the past, I don't know, 7 months.
Wow. Have you read his books as well?
What I have done is I have taken his 2 audiobooks and I edit out 15-minute segments. So basically, like what I'll do is I will start a Zoom meeting and I will share screen the Kindle audiobook and I will record it and then I will download it and then I'll bring it into Final Cut and then I'll edit the 15 minutes that I want to listen to on repeat. And then I will rip my favorite instrumentals from YouTube and I will bring them in and then I'll put that on my phone and then I'll listen to these like kind of like concepts that Eckhart puts out there, but it has really dope music. And then I'll maybe listen to that like, I don't know, 50 times in a row. And
that is awesome. That's actually makes so much sense to me for some reason. Yeah. And are you doing it like maybe for the enjoyment, but also because you're learning something from Eckhart Tolle?
Yeah, I'd say it's both. Like what I did recently was I searched the book for all the times he uses the word resistance. And that ended up being between his 2 books, between The Power of Now and A New Earth. That ended up being about 35 minutes of audio. Like if you grab all of the, with enough context, the passages, and then I edited that into 1 15-minute and 1 20-minute recording. And then I make sure that like each segment feeds into the next. So it sounds like a lecture, even though it's like a 1-minute clip here, 30-second clip here. And then while I'm listening to my Spotify mix, I have a playlist called 4 Words. And then I had maybe about like 40 minutes worth of songs on Spotify. And so then I find them on YouTube and take them. So it takes a considerable amount of time to do it. So I think it is the like creative process. It's a song that I've created, it feels like, but then it's also like, okay, let me just surround myself with this concept of non-resistance and see if I can, because I used to be the person that was like listening to audiobook after audiobook on 2x speed. And I just kind of realized like, hey, ask me about this book. I got nothing. So like, I'm not retaining it, but I read it. So this is just kind of like an ego exercise. So if I'm going to retain this book, I have to listen to it multiple times. And I found that most nonfiction books will do like, here's a really good story to like get you engaged. And then here's kind of like what the story means. And like re-listening to a story over and over again kind of drives me crazy. So I just edit out the kind of like takeaway message and then just listen to the takeaway message over and over again. And then the music keeps me from putting it on 2x speed. And a song can mean something different depending on what's going on in your life. So I find then that like 10-minute section brings on like a life of its own with the music.
That's actually pretty cool. I think Matt has something on one of his playlists that sounds very similar to what you're describing. Is it from Watts Waits? I don't remember the guy's name, but I will send it to you just, and I don't know, to see if it's something that you'd be into. But it sounds like something very useful and something that I would do if I was trying to ingrain a concept into my mind, because I think I fall into the same boat as you. I can listen to something or read something and it won't necessarily, well, it won't stick with me unless it's something that I really reflect on, or I listen to it more than once, or, you know, the memory plays back in my head many, many times. But if not, then I'm not going to remember the content whatsoever. And whenever I'm trying to accomplish something, let's say getting my finances in order, I do find it so helpful to listen to different podcasts and listen to essentially different variations of the same story about how somebody, you know, got their finances in order or their health in order or something like that. And so people can be saying the same thing, but I still like find that it keeps up my motivation to listen to it over and over. And so it just sounds like you have found a foolproof way to do that. Like, you don't even have to rely on people making new content. You just have the message that you want, and you're really working on letting it seep in.
Well, I appreciate that. On what you said, I'm not the inventor of putting music behind kind of spiritual talks. There are a lot of ones out there for Abraham Hicks and Alan Watts that have music behind it. And then in August, Sugar Ross put out a whole album where they created music specifically for these kind of spiritual talks that they must have gotten the permission to use to it. So they actually wrote the music for it. One of those was Alan Watts. So that was a pretty cool album. I was like, oh my God, this is what I've been doing. And this is like one of my favorite bands. And like, okay, cool. That's awesome. I dig this.
Very cool. Very cool.
When you and I were last talking about finance advice through podcasts, you were really into Dave Ramsey at the time. Are you still into Dave Ramsey? Do you still use that as your financial philosophy? Where are you at in terms of the finance podcast stuff you're listening to, and how has your like financial strategy evolved since we last were talking about this stuff?
I feel like it's a bad word now. Like, Dave Ramsey has become so controversial.
Really?
Yeah, at least in my social media and my spaces, it's like, he's terrible. He's because he mixes his business with his religion, that can also lead to discrimination. Funny, we come back to this discrimination word. So that's problematic. But as far as what I get from it, so I don't really listen to him anymore, but totally I would listen to him on repeat, like drinking up as much of it as I can when I was trying to pay off my student loans. And then once I did that, I kind of, wasn't as interested because I just didn't need that motivation anymore because I had done the thing. But I never really fully followed his baby steps. That's his program. But I really was encouraged by his tough love, no nonsense demeanor. And I think people, maybe they don't really appreciate that abrasiveness, but I find it very empowering that he is like, you did a stupid thing, you fix your mistake, instead of the other problem, which is like our system kind of sucks. Like, capitalism has so many problems, and I'm aware of that. But as opposed to thinking about that and it feeling overwhelming, focusing on what I can do and how I can have more wealth or stable finances, just, I don't know, that felt really great to me. It didn't matter if he was like a meanie. And I also really loved, he would have something called the Debt-Free Scream, where different people would come to his studio in Tennessee and talk about their story and how they followed his plan and how they saved up every penny, even though they were only making $35,000 a year. And their success stories. I found that to be so motivating. So yeah, I don't really listen to him much anymore, like every once in a while. But I've switched over to listening to a bunch of weight loss podcasts because I was like, oh, if it worked with money, maybe it'll work with me trying to get in shape. And so that's been my current train.
Okay, so I'm assuming the Dave Ramsey stuff is probably around like just kind of the feedback that a lot of the personal development space gets is like, hey, we don't live in a meritocracy. Hey, like finance, when you're going to talk about finance and economics, you have to have like systemic oppression as context. Like, is that kind of been the feedback to good old Dave?
Yeah, that's definitely been part of it. Exactly what you just described, in addition to him being viewed as outdated. And, his first step was always save up $1,000 for an emergency. And now it's 2023. And we're like, what are we going to do with $1,000? That's like not going to pay rent for a lot of people for 1 month, let alone 6 months. And not that he said $1,000 should be good for 6 months, but you know what I mean. And also he really, what's the word? I cannot think of the word, but he doesn't approve of credit cards. He thinks it's all a scam essentially. And your credit score is not something that you should be beholden to, which I totally get. But at the same time, there is an argument to be made that people can like hack credit cards and get the benefits from it, and get a credit score, because it is something that's really useful in just living here in the United States, is having a credit score. And so like maybe it would be more empowering to people to teach them how to use their credit card rather than just saying credit cards are dumb and we should get rid of them and not use them.
And just do everything through debit? Is that what he doesn't want you to put anything on credit, even if you pay it off at the... Well, we don't need to go down a whole Dave Ramsey rabbit hole.
Yeah, but that's basically it.
Okay.
No, it's what you said. Yep.
I've never listened to him in my life. You're the only person I know who did listen to him. So helpful, all helpful context. Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk about you said you've switched to researching weight loss stuff. Do you want to talk about that at all, or do we leave it there?
I don't know. I think there's something else that I'd rather talk about. Not that I wouldn't want to talk about weight loss, but it is not calling to me at the moment. It's just like one of those topics.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Oh, can I go ahead with my other topic, my other questions that I had for you?
Let's do it.
So another thing that I was thinking about recently is that I realized my identity has changed a little bit. And whenever you're in a new situation or like doing icebreakers or getting to know different people, or like you're on a Zoom meeting and people are like, what's your name? Where are you at? And what's something you like to do? And I would always say salsa dancing. And it dawned on me recently, I have not been salsa dancing consistently in like 8 years or something like that. In the past 8 years, maybe I've been like 3 times, but it used to be something that I was so into, and I still have such a deep love for it. But I was like, oh, maybe that's not like part of my identity at the moment. I really can't say salsa dancing is one of my hobbies because I don't do it right now. And I was just curious if you had anything like that, like something that is your default when someone is like, oh, what do you like? What are you into, Tom Earl? And then maybe it's not that anymore.
Great one. That's a great one. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that I don't do anymore. I really don't do spoken word anymore. A big part of it always was like, I'd want to somehow talk about my business. And now, like, when people ask me, what do I do? I'm always like, I don't know. Like, I was at the park and I had asked somebody something and they were like, oh, well, what do you do? And I was like, that's why I'm here. I'm trying to figure that out. Like, I don't know what I do. Some storytelling, marketing, music. I got nothing. So I think, I'd be like, well, I run a Facebook and Instagram ad agencies for coaches, course creators trying to make an impact. Like that kind of like line. Like, does that sound like you? You want my card? You want to do business? You want to give me money? Now I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know what I do. I got nothing. So I think really trying to de-emphasize the business professional development, or not professional, like the professional, how I make money side. I would say that no longer is a like part of my identity that I get a lot of like identity and ego from, or it's like Tom Earl, like one of the things up until very recently that I'd want you to associate with that is like really good at marketing, this kind of thing, kind of like has an awesome podcast. And now it's like Tom Earl, that weird guy who hikes a lot. Like I'm really, I think, embracing and recognizing that I am rather weird, like a lot of when I kind of like some of the things I talk about, I've noticed with some of my friends, I've even asked them like, have I just gotten like so weird that it's hard to hang out with me? Like I just have straight up asked some of my friends, like, so I think I'm just becoming like more comfortable with like, this is who I am and who I've always been. And I'm just so sick of wearing a mask. I'm so sick of like, I actually researched, do I have undiagnosed autism? Because I came across an article that was like, there's a whole bunch of people that are adults that are, and I like looked it up and I was like, I think I've just been like, for so long, I try to like imitate or act like how can I act with this person right now so that who I am doesn't make them uncomfortable or like weirded out or like, and so a lot of times I feel like, I'm just like, this is how I think I'm supposed to act in this situation, so let me do it. And I'm more and more trying to become like, but who are you actually? Like, what do you actually want to do? Like if you were to just be with somebody and not have to wear a mask or act or perform, I feel like a lot of times too, like when people are talking to you, they want you to like perform your listening. And I think that's different than active listening. Like I'm a very active listener, but I've found that people who like need you to perform listening, where it's like, I say this, I need you to laugh. And then I say this and I need you to do this. And like, I'm just like, I don't have it in me. I can't be a performative listener. You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah.
So I think that's a part of the podcast. Like I can't be like, oh my God, tell me about your business. There's so many interviews I did where the person like 3 minutes in would be like, we're almost done. In fact, we have 4 minutes.
Oh man. Okay. Burning question. When you ask your friends if you're too weird to hang out with, what do they say?
Some folks will be like, well, we are getting quite a bit esoteric and I don't know if I'm in that mindset. And I sometimes I don't, I more just feel out that it's like, even in this big city of LA, that some of my friends that like we really get each other, I just have to embrace that phone calls and Zooms and voice memos, like that I have to accept that when you start to become yourself fully and you just want as much as you can not participate in the drama or the like, okay, let's hang out, I complain, then you complain, then I complain, then you complain, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I just don't have it in me to do that. That you're now like, you've shrunk the amount of people who will enjoy your company by a lot. And so wherever somebody lives in the world, even if you can't hang out with them in person, embrace and nurture that relationship. And like, can you stand being by yourself without having to be entertained? That's like a big one. Like, can I just be by myself without having to be like distracted from the fact that I'm hanging out with myself?
That is a hard one.
Yeah.
I was actually. Oh, go ahead.
So I guess that's like the answer. Like, yeah, you're just like, hey, here's a pretty straightforward, fun question, and I'm like, let me tie this back to like the meaning of life. So I think I'm kind of in that place. I'm just like, you know, I was like, I don't know. I'm on the like, I don't know if I'm in the middle or the end of an existential crisis. So I don't have easy answers to almost anything right now.
Okay. And that's beautiful, I think.
But that's a good one. That was a good one. I'm gonna pocket that one. You know, how has the icebreaker of tell me about yourself, how has that changed over the years? I think that's a really good question. I appreciate that question.
Oh, well, thank you. This is a multiple choice question. So have you seen and loved the show Love on the Spectrum? And your answers are yes or hell yeah.
Yes and hell yeah. I have seen it. The amount of TV watching time I have has greatly diminished. So I've only seen maybe 3 episodes and not of the new season.
Okay. So you've seen the Australian one.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Gotcha. Because you mentioned, you're wondering if you were on the spectrum, and shows like this are, to me, just so fascinating and really like, it feels like it's helping me understand, giving me a little tiny glimpse of what life might be like for someone who's not neurotypical. And I'm trying not to like romanticize it, because the people in the show seem so lovable, but I have to remind myself like that's not necessarily an easy life or something to be coveted. But at the same time, a part of me is like, I want to hang out with these people. And it totally, learning more about autism through that kind of media, like a very fun, approachable way, has totally made me wonder if people in my life are on the spectrum. So it is very curious that you've also asked yourself that question.
Two thoughts, and you heard Adora being like, okay, time to switch into dad mode. So we can pick these things up. But I totally just recognize, especially now having a child, that like it is total BS how our school system, our society segregates us based upon I don't know the correct phrase. Like you said, neurotypical. Like we should, and I think they're doing this more, but like in the classroom, we should be able to have a diversity of friends based upon how we access with our minds and at work and all these things. Like there should be we should be able to hang out with each other and bring value. But so often it's like, because of capitalism, like you have to perform this task in this exact way every single time or you're not useful. And so it's like, okay, you clearly can't do this. You go into this room, you go into this space, and then we just don't see each other. And so I think you're totally right that it's like friendships and creativity and creation and solutions and joy would come from and will come from the more we're able to break down the segregation within our cognitive and physical abilities of life. So I'm totally with you on that.
Agree. And I know you said you have to go soon. I just had one other question too.
Yep.
Having to do TV shows and movies, have you seen the new Disney movie Strange World?
I have not, but I'm always on the lookout for great kids movies for my daughter. Someone write it down. Strange World.
Oh, okay. I don't know if that's the one I would recommend.
Okay. Well, I'll check it out for myself.
Sure. It's just it's one of these movies that I don't know many people who watched it, and I am really genuinely curious about some opinions, and yours would be such an interesting one. I know you don't really have time to watch it, but if you have a chance to watch like the first 15 minutes, please let me know so we can discuss.
Well, Gabrielle Union's in it. That's all you had to say.
Indeed, she is animated, but yes, her voice is still there.
And what's the name of her second book? We Need Something Stronger. We need more wine. That's like life-changing book. That book changed my life. Really? We're going to need more wine. That's the name of the book. Oh my God, that book changed my life.
That was her second book. I didn't even know that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that was a good one. I have that one.
Well, oh my God, so many more things we can talk about. So like Jana, we're going to have you, maybe it'll just be Jana, Sadiya. Maybe that'll just be how 2023 goes.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. It was a real honor and also a great time for us to really dedicate some time to each other. I
know. I wish we could. We'll get there. We'll get to hang out more in person. But in the meantime, this was awesome. This is very cup filling.
Yeah, same.
Okay, what is your final invitation to the good folks out there? What would you like to invite them to do, to be, to consider, to think about, to evolve into? What's your invitation?
Genuinely, the first thing that comes to my mind is if you're listening to this podcast, call Tom, send Tom a text message. He will occasionally give out his personal number, and he would love to hear from you.
That is a great one. I appreciate that. And if you listen to this, send Sadiya an affirmation as well, if there's something you appreciated, even if it's just the feeling. And I that's kind of what I'm going for, is that the famous Maya Angelou quote that you may not remember a single word that we said, but you remember how you felt listening to us. So be sure to share that. Oh man, so many unleft things. Wanting to know about your playing your harp and all these other things. And so we will have to have you back again soon for sure, Sadiya.
Sure. Thanks so much. And I look forward to it.
Same here. And to all those who are listening, as always, we're wishing you peace and blessings. Thank you. One more thing. I'd love to continue the conversation. Feel free to join me at tomearl.com/join. Subscribe below, or let's connect on social media. Tom Earl Artist. Thanks again for watching.